spank, coddle, scream, reprimand, speak when spoken to, model behavior. These are all conflicting things you hear when you become a parent. Some blogger is telling you to do one or the other, and the other side is wrong. But here's the thing. Joke's on you. Your kid's still going to think you're a big dumb idiot when you grow up. Have a kid. It's fun. Today on the show is a hilarious, kind of good friend of mine, Joe Pontillo, and we are talking about the differences in parenting styles. They're all wrong. No matter what you do, you're fucking wrong. And this, a lot like that mom who drags their kid by the neck fat down the mall corridor like a fucking cat, is a bit too much.
You know, people, the internet's so toxic now, and Twitter.
I mean, it's not.
Nothing was more toxic than going into an AOL chat room back in the day.
Yeah, right.
And I don't know. I was
scary place.
Very.
Old AOL was people talk about fucking catfishing and stuff like that. That's what everyone was doing.
Yeah.
It was all fucked up back then. It was Wild West of internet.
I don't know
chats.
how people would find me, but I kept getting random messages from girls who'd be like, "Oh, you're in Valley Stream. I'm in Elmont, or I'm in Valley Stream too."
Or girls.
No, they were girls, but
Were you in Valley Stream chat?
No, I wasn't. I don't even remember ever going to a Valley Stream. I mean, my AOL profile, I'm sure, said where I was from.
Were you able to look people up by find people
I was
near
always
me type
doxing
thing?
myself. That's why you can't really dox me unless I had a fake account.
Right.
But so I had an AOL screen name, First Canada A6.
What?
Exactly. I had such a weird sense of humor. Canada, and then you know how Canadians say A, so there was A, and then 6. And I just...
So Canada A6 was your thing?
My first AOL screen name. And I would just go into
Even
chat
for a
rooms,
teenager, that's dumb.
and I would just get in fights with people. I don't even know about what.
You would antagonize people, or you just would
Sort of. People would be trying to have a good time, and I'd be like, "No, I don't think so, buddy." Which is now weird that I'm so against that. But, when I was a teenager, I was just a prick.
Right.
But it's because when you grow up on Long Island...
Everyone's a prick.
Everyone's a prick.
Yeah.
Everyone's a horrible human being. Every kid is a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Everyone's racist. It doesn't matter what you are.
Right.
No,
it's true.
My parents were psycho. No,
Back then, though, I don't know if it's the same. Is it still the same?
Probably a little bit, but so everyone was just horrible. I got suspended from AOL first.
Okay. That was AOL suspended your account.
Right. Well, you could get 3 flags.
Report you.
Yeah, so I got the third one and I was out.
I do remember
But it coincided with me and my dumb friends used to make prank calls.
Okay.
And for some reason, my friend got this great idea to call his old number from where he lived in Queens, but put an Arizona area code in front of it. And it was this guy who worked for a real estate company.
Okay.
And we would just harass him all the time for
just
some reason.
The same guy.
Yeah. And we would never block the number. So at some point he called my house and was like, "Your son or somebody at your house causing me all this grief." And my mom just fucking lost it.
You're just harassing an elderly man?
No, not
I mean, the voice you did sound like an elderly man.
No, that was me doing a bad Southern accent. So my mom just hung up the phone and goes, "I'm canceling AOL right now." And I'm like, what does that have to do with anything?
Yeah.
So I was grounded, but I had already been suspended from AOL and she didn't know it. So that was it. I had no internet for a few months. And then I called my friend to be like, "This guy Al called us." What? He was like, "Oh shit." And then my friend went to a payphone to call him and apologize.
Because he didn't want the number to show up.
Of course, but it was fine when it was my house. So then but me losing AOL was only a few months thing, and then I got a new account, and I was much mellower. It was just that first time you
had fucking lost it. You were like, I can just talk to random people.
I just have to ruin lives for some reason. I don't know why.
Yeah. I mean, those were, it's funny because the internet now is scary in a different way.
It was scary, but it was everyone's kind of on the same playing field. This is new to all of us.
Well, you know what I think it is?
Whereas now I feel like people have years of training and plotting to do something terrible.
I feel like the internet was scary the way the world was scary back then, and the internet is scary the way the world is scary now. So it's different, right? Like there's still scary places, but like back then when something bad happened to you, it was very individual.
Right.
Like someone wanted to abduct you,
Yeah,
right? It was one person looking for someone to hurt. And
Do not give directions to strangers. Why would they ask a kid?
so, right, like the AOL was the same way. Like you may get a one-on-one conversation with someone who was creepy or who was mean or something like that, right? Now I think it's like you fall into the comment sections of trolls and like there's a million people attacking you.
And you get mentioned on Reddit somehow.
You get mentioned on Reddit or like
Which could go either way.
Or you put something innocent up on your fucking channels and then you get attacked by 40 people. Or
Yeah.
even if it's like, because like you think about like teenagers and stuff, people who are like constantly on the internet and they can get bullied at school and then the bullying comes home. Because, when we got bullied at school, you got punched
Just
in the
like
face.
when LeBron came home, bullying comes home.
Right. It's you. I'm not sure I fully understood that, but when you, I said right, but I don't understand.
You made
what
it sound like hopeful and optimistic. Bullying comes home.
bullying comes up.
Bringing it home.
Well, you know what I mean. When we got bullied, you got like bullied at school or whatever the fucking playground, right? And then
Right.
like you left, and then that person couldn't reach you.
And it was kind of the same thing of like someone would just decide like, oh, this is the person I'm going to bully. And there was no rhyme or reason to it.
Yeah, sure. Random,
You did nothing to instigate this.
No,
They
no,
were just
random.
like,
School
this person's
bully-
smaller than me or younger than me.
School bully or neighborhood bully. I feel like Queens. I grew up in Queens. You grew up in Long Island, right? And same type of people. Just you get fucked with for no reason. But like now, if let's say someone's trying to fuck with you at school, now they can just post shit about you when you get home, and the bullying sort of travels. It's sort of scary when you like from the perspective of a parent, man. You're like, my kid's young. My kid's 3, so it's not happening yet. But I'm just like dreading the days of having to deal with that shit. And and parenting is so fucking different. Just like your parents took away the internet, right? Like they took away AOL from you for a little bit.
Well, they were paying for it.
Did you have strict parents?
I don't know if I would say my mom was strict, but she was just intense, like all the time.
She was just
like
an Italian
anything
woman?
you did wrong was just like you're the worst person ever. Like one time I knocked over a bottle of soda and it just spilled all over the table. And she was like, "Get out, get in your room, you're done."
You're always ruining things.
But then my dad would just like make fun of my mom.
Right. Well, your dad's a funny guy.
To the point,
And he's-
and
yeah.
here's a really like wacky story. When I was little, my dad would always call my mom devil mother for some reason. And then one time, and
Devil mother?
Yeah, as a joke, I guess.
yeah.
But then I was a kid and I was very impressionable. And one time, my dad and my uncle were gonna go do something. And they were like, "Oh, let's bring Joseph." And my mom was like, No.
Like you were
And he's
grounded?
like, no, I wasn't even grounded.
Oh, okay.
And then I just went, "Yes, please don't leave me here with devil mother." And then obviously my mom was like, "Ah!"
Yeah, you can't say it.
No, well, yeah, exactly.
You can't say it. Well, we came up in the. We're about to say. How old are you, Joe?
It's not important, but yeah, I'm in the.
Are you one of these people who can't say your age?
40-ish,
What-
yeah.
You're in your 40s, right?
There you
You're in
go.
your early 40s. I'm almost 40. So we're about to say we came up. We grew up in the 80s and 90s, right? That's really my point. It wasn't to expose how fucking elderly you are. I mean, you look better than I do, so it's. I
I don't even want to know how old you are.
I'm younger than you.
Oh, yeah.
I'm 38.
That's a problem. You're only 38.
Why is you are literally the third straight fucking person who came on this show who is older than me, who takes issue with the fact that they're older than me. Everyone thinks that I'm older than them because I don't.
Well, you have a kid, and
Yeah, I
your
got gray
marriage seems
hair.
serious.
had serious health problems.
You've had real jobs.
I've had real jobs. Yeah,
I haven't had a real job since 2015. So.
Right. I'm like the way you look when you're a kid and you look at like people on like a TV show sitcom and you think they're like 40 and then you find out they were supposed to be like 23.
You were a 27-year-old in like 1984, but now you're like 68. It makes no sense. You're my dad's age.
Right. But we grew up in this age.
I have a friend who my age, actually 6 months younger, and he looks like he's 25 years older than me.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
You know, stress and fucking life.
Just-
it hits people differently.
I guess.
Genetics, all that shit. But my point about the age is that we grew up in this era of like the respect with parents and kids went one way, right? Like you gave your parents respect. Your parents said, like my dad, his thing was like, you respect everyone older than you. I'm like, everyone? Like even the fucking, he just, and he meant like the people that we knew, you know what I mean? Like,
what was weird is when I was a kid, I feel like I almost related to older people more than kids.
Oh, so did I.
I was when my parents had friends over, I'd be like, I want to hang out with you guys.
That's exactly what I did. I sat at the fucking table with them while they were all smoking cigarettes around me. And
yeah, they'd be playing Scrabble. I'm like, let me get in on this.
And you're like bullshitting with them because, I do think it's also like,
because I've only just caught up to where I think my mind always was in the last few years.
Your age is finally where you were when you were in your 40s. I was always
like
a
mid to late 30s, early 40s year old.
Like a maturity level. I think that could be a comic thing too, because it's like a mind that is like kind of pumping on a lot of cylinders and like thinking ahead a little bit.
Yeah.
And you're a little bit of, you're also like a dreamer and you're like, it's a little bit of like, there's a maturity that happens because your mind is already going there.
And I remember being like, yeah, being a kid's fine and all, but like there's stuff I want to do and I can't do it.
I can't do this shit
I can't do it for like 15, 20 years.
Right. And so, I got into a lot of trouble and stuff when I was like, I was a little bit of a wise ass.
Yeah, I was horrible.
But
nice at the same time. I don't know.
Right. Like there's a line of like, I know how to be respectful because God forbid I'm not in front of my dad. Like I've learned how to be respectful, but at the same time, I'm still going to go out and fucking burn the neighborhood down. And so my dad taught me like respect is like you're a kid. So it's a speak when spoken to thing. Right. And the respect goes one way. And I got hit. You know what I mean? Like when I acted up, I got hit. And like fucking hit.
Not by your parents, just like random people would show up and be like, this freaking kid.
No, I had this conversation with Kunal about like my dad would give other fucking people he knew like permission to hit me. If he'd be like, if he acts up, you fucking hit him. And I remember being horrified, being like, I don't even know this dude. I was going to get punched in the face at some point. No, I didn't get punched by my dad, but I got open hand smacked from him.
I don't know if my dad ever hit me. My mom would do the hitting.
Your mom would do the hitting.
And then my dad would come home from working like 16 hours and he'd be like, la, 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 la. Right. One time, my dad lost it on me because I did something really silly where like I took out a knife and just like cut or pretended to cut like the arm
killed your sister.
Of a chair.
It's so silly.
While my sister watched. And for some reason, that was like a trigger. And my dad was like, you're grounded forever. And I was like, what? And then my mom came home.
You were cutting the furniture
I guess.
that they bought with their hard-earned money.
No, I wasn't even cutting. I was just pretending to cut it. And then my mom came home and she was just like, you're good. And that was like the one time they like reversed roles. It was very weird.
Right. Because you almost hit your dad in the pockets, like where it hurt. Like he was like, "I fucking paid for that chair," and he probably was thinking, "Your mother's gonna flip out."
I've always had this theory that like something happened when he was growing up, maybe with his siblings, and it just reminded him of that.
It was like you triggered it
because my dad doesn't talk to any of his family members.
So maybe it was like a triggering moment.
That's what I always thought, because that was the only time he ever got like really mad at me about something.
My dad got mad all the time. My dad was so inconsistent, and he would just get mad like over the same thing that the day before he'd be fine with. So like if he like you could joke around with him, you could be like as simple as like, "Hey, you're old, Dad," and he'd be like, "Ha ha," and then the next day he's like, "Don't you fucking talk to me that way." Like really, you didn't know where you stood with him. And it always caught like, but I relentlessly made jokes because my mom is a person who has a good sense of humor about herself. I could to this day make fun of my mother, and she will laugh her ass off as you make fun of her.
Carmelo, are you eating your stew? I don't know. Seems like a stew person.
My mom seems like a stew person.
Man, my mom would make some terrible meals, and I was just like, this sucks, and then eventually she'd stop making it.
Yeah, well,
she used to make stew and veal cutlets. I'm like, nobody likes this.
Dude, I mean, those things don't sound that bad to me, to be honest with you. But feeding a kid is another fucking like, it is a nightmare feeding a child. You think you don't think of it when you're a kid. You don't think like, how difficult was it to feed me? Because you just think like it's food. I eat food. I like food.
Right.
Do you know how hard it is to feed a fucking child?
That was the one thing my dad would get not mad about, but he'd like pick on you about eating.
Yeah.
Like, you have to eat all the food
my
he
dad.
likes. If you chew with your mouth open, he will shame you every night.
Yeah.
He would bring us home, like, Dominoes and then shame us for eating. It's just cardboard. I'm like, you bought it.
My grandmother
I didn't
used to
suggest this.
My grandmother lived downstairs from us, used to like cook for me before dinner, so but I wasn't allowed to tell my dad. And then I would go upstairs and I'd be full, and my dad would be like, eat the food. Right? And I'd be like, I'm full. He's like, what are you full from? You haven't eaten since lunch. But I couldn't rat out my grandma. So I would just force myself to eat the food and feel like nauseous about it. And it started a very long habit of overeating, because what ended up happening is that I got fucking hardwired to like never leave food on my plate, which is still a thing I fucking struggle with. I realize that looking back, my wife helped me identify
That's why I
this
have all
issue.
these stomach problems.
My wife
eat all this food.
My wife helped me identify this. She was like, this is because you weren't allowed to not finish what was on your plate when your grandma cooked a whole meal for you before dinner, but you couldn't rat out grandma, right? You couldn't rat out Nona, so you had to fucking go upstairs and then eat another meal 2 hours later. And my dad would be like, you're going to sit there and you're going to finish this meal. Everyone's cleared out. I still have food in front of me. And he'd come back in every 20 minutes and be like, you done? Right? And this is an era and a generation, and my dad's an immigrant. There's a little bit of that too. And this is a time you did not question
Bon Jovi.
You didn't question a dad back then. Like, you just didn't. The respect really went one way, and the hitting and all this. And I think the generation of parents now, there's a lot of we know a lot of my wife and I know a lot of parents. Obviously, like, we have kids who have friends and all that stuff. And and there's a hard line of like, some people are into this like idea of what's called like gentle parenting, which is like the idea that you talk to your kids.
Oh yeah. Well, see, a lot of parents today, I think, are like too gentle, because like they don't even want to. They don't even want to be parents. They're just like, all right, well, we had a kid. Let's just kind of let it run around and ruin everyone else's lives.
You start seeing
including us.
You start seeing that. But look, I will tell you this though, it is a hard fucking line to go like, I'm gonna teach my kid how to be right and not fuck with people, but I'm also trying not to yell at that kid over everything. I grew up flinching because I got hit so much. If someone walked behind me, I'd be like, I would just jump because I got hit. And
I would just be like, calm down, no matter what happened.
And I'd be like, well, now thinking, I'm like, I will never hit my kid. And because one, she's a kid, and I feel like there's no real reason to hit kids.
Also, it's weird if you have a daughter, right?
Yeah.
I feel like it's weird if a dad hits a daughter.
Right. Yeah, but in the
That's your son. Beat the shit out.
But
of
in
him.
our generation, the girls got hit too. We all fucking got hit.
Oh,
They just
yeah.
got hit less, or like they got hit lighter. You know what I mean? They just got hit a little softer. But now, I mean, one, I'm not going to hit my kid because I'm just teaching. I really do believe you're just teaching the kid to respond with fucking violence. At a very young age, where that's a hard concept to understand.
Yeah.
I see people hitting their fucking 3-year-olds, and you're like,
as soon as the baby's right out of the womb, it's crying. Punch.
You can't fucking hit a 3-year-old. It's honestly, it is psychologically damaging to hit a 3-year-old.
I agree, but
you can't, right? But then there becomes all right, maybe not hitting, but like the yelling versus the speaking. There is a fine line, but here's the fucked up part about it, right? You got like one set of parents here who are like, I'm a gentle parent, and you got one set of parents here who are like, I'll yell at my kid when they act bad, right? Both of those parents have kids who are misbehaving because kids misbehave, especially like toddler. It's not even misbehaving. They're like, their brains go through those phases of like, this is the age where they test you. This is the age where they have like actual developmental reasons why they're doing that. At
what we need is more comedians to do bits about how no one hits their kids anymore. You should never be able to hit your kids.
Everyone's gonna fucking punch a kid. I got punched.
Do you have kids? No, but I'd like to hit some.
Everyone was like, "Oh, I got hit as a kid." I'm like, "Yeah, and you're fucked up, dude."
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, dude, the amount of anxiety I grew up with is crazy, right? Because I did get hit.
I just have a lot of like food anxiety, because 97% of whatever my dad would get angry at was just food related.
But that's the thing.
Oh, you're using a spoon with that pasta? You need a fork. What's wrong with you? You're not my son.
But that's the thing right there. Whatever it is that especially dads, because dads are like scarier because it's like bass in their voice. Whatever your dad chose to get mad about a lot, You grow up with anxiety about that thing. My dad got mad about a lot of things, so I had anxiety about a lot of things. Your dad was generally not that like crazy and strict, right? But the one thing, thing he yelled at you about, you do have anxiety about.
So I don't have anxiety about it.
No, but like kind of fucks with you a little bit, right? That's my point. Is like I am not, and look, there's no fucking perfect way to do it. I am not going to be the reason why my kid has like 17 anxiety fucking driven issues because I yelled at her about every fucking thing. So you got the set of parents here who yell at their kid. You got the set of parents here that don't yell at their kid. Both of their kids are acting like assholes because it's just a kid thing to do. And you know, and in the end, it's like, well, if the kid's going to misbehave anyway, I'd rather get on a knee and talk to her eye to eye and explain to her. It's hard because they may not listen to you in the moment, but I'd rather explain to her what she's doing is wrong for a certain reason than yell at her. She's misbehaving the same amount, but I'm not psychologically damaging her by having a conversation. I feel like I'm teaching her to have logical conversations. My 3-year-old will tell me I'm frustrated. She says that to me. She'll be like, I'm frustrated right now, which I think is a mature fucking response.
See. She's a psychotherapist now.
Right. But it is pretty amazing that like, because when you first do it, when you say something to a kid, you don't think they're absorbing it because it's just kind of like they're being a kid. They're just like going around. But if you keep on repeating that thing, you do find, because kids, you model behavior and the kids do it back. My kid will check herself out of a situation where she'll be like, I'm frustrated right now. And she'll like find an activity away from the situation that frustrates herself, which I think is a mature thing to do. I don't think
my 3-year-old niece knows the word frustrated, but so what's going on at your house?
Yeah. Well, no, frustration from
Was that her first word?
Yeah, it was, Dada, you're frustrating me. No, that's a good word to know because the kids get frustrated over like a crayon breaking. You know what I mean? It's not true. I'm not saying my kid's like, I can't pay the fucking bills, Dad. I'm just saying like,
playtime is canceled.
She can recognize her high because it's all emotions with kids. You know what the thing is? Parents, our generation have grown up, I think, if we misbehaved when we were like 4, let's say 3 years old, our parents are like, he's being bad, right? He's bad. And they'd be like, you're being bad. But the thing is, a fucking 3-year-old is being a 3-year-old. So it's like you don't, it's not about being bad.
Show some respect.
Dude, that's exactly how I fucking grew up. That's exactly what my dad would say to me. You know, it's like I was being bad and disrespectful. So like, if you're going to at least have a conversation with the kid and tell him why it's wrong or act another way, and you're speaking to them logically as opposed to like shaming them, I think you're having a much deeper conversation with your kid. But it's a hard thing. It's a hard thing to do because you don't know if it's working in the moment. You kind of just see the effects of it as it goes on. But I got fucking hit over everything, man.
Explains kind of a lot.
It does, right?
And then you had your dates hitting you later on.
I got assaulted a lot.
I'm going to choke you after the show.
But I mean, you don't have kids.
No.
You've got kids in your family, right?
One.
Yeah, like a nephew or a niece?
Niece, yeah.
Well, how old's your niece now?
I just said 3 years old. And she doesn't know the word frustrated. At least I don't think she does. All she knows is Disney characters.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, my daughter has like a very large vocabulary, but like we have a very, there's especially a lot of Italians we know. If they hear us going, listen, Sophia, here's what you did wrong. They're like, they will either say that we're doing that wrong.
How much Italian do you know?
I can hold a conversation in like the Sicilian dialect.
That's we are the least Italian people. Mm-hmm. The only words I knew in Italian was like "Verica," which means like come here.
Yeah.
Or like, is pasta fazool an actual thing or is that like made up?
It is. No, it's
the word for, mafangul. That's it.
Right.
That's all.
Which is like, go fuck yourself.
Which is kind of all you need to like survive a conversation with Italians, I think.
What are you going to eat?
Come here. What are you going to eat?
Come here. What are you going to eat? Go fuck yourself.
Go fuck yourself.
That is the circle of most Italian conversations.
Now, did your family have any like Italian like relics in the house? Like, was there a picture of the Pope in your house?
Not of the Pope, but yeah. My grandmother
or Sinatra.
My grandmother who lived downstairs had what she had, and both of my grandmothers had this, had religious stuff.
Right. Was Pope John Paul II like an honorary Italian? I don't understand. He was Polish.
I think all popes are honorary Italians.
I guess so.
Because Italians pretend to be good
Italians
Catholics.
is why there's Catholicism.
Yeah.
Sure, we were involved in killing Jesus, but we put out like 12 Jesuses every Christmas to balance it out.
And they continue to be they continued for years to be responsible for killing many people.
But then we just started killing, our own.
Right. So it's like, okay.
Not so bad.
So it was like all religious things and then like pictures of all the dead people in my family. Like, grandfathers, an uncle that died young and all that stuff. It was just like, her house was just it was kind of like a funeral home. It was just like religious and dead people all around. And then like both my grandmas had this. They have those same things. And then they had like one picture from like 1940 of like the whole family in the hills of Sicily. Like everyone looks miserable. No one's smiling in the picture. Everyone's wearing black. And they're all just staring at the camera.
27 kids.
Yeah. And they're all staring at the camera because it's probably the first camera they've ever seen.
None of them are smiling.
They don't know they don't know the etiquette. Yeah. It's like the first camera they saw.
Is this a cult? What is this?
Right. I mean, they grew up with fucking 17 people that they knew outside their family and goats. So like when someone came with a camera, they were like, what fucking wizardry is this?
Yeah, thankfully my parents, I feel like, were from the generation where they decided, maybe we shouldn't have 12 kids.
Yeah. Well, your parents are American though, right? They were born here.
Yes.
Yeah. I think that's what happens.
But I think
you're like, I don't need that many kids?
Yeah, I think my mom's parents had like 5 or 6 siblings.
Are your grandparents off the boat?
No, but their parents were.
Your great grandparents were off the boat. Okay.
So we're like way down the line. I remember I went to Ellis Island as a kid, and my mom was like, make sure, you used to do the thing, you put a piece of paper on the wall with all the names on it and scratch it, whatever.
Yeah.
And for some reason, I just forgot to do it for my mom's grandparents, and she was like so mad. I just like scratched off the Pontillo, which I'm not even sure if that was...
She took offense in the sense of like, you love that family more than me?
I guess, it's my last name. I don't know.
Right.
Also, I think it was another Joe Pontillo, because of course.
Yeah, there's 80 Joes.
At least.
Yeah.
Me, my dad. My dad has a cousin named Joe Pontillo.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. And it was like great Joe Pontillo, who I think
we had a bunch of Ritas.
Ritas?
Yeah, we had a bunch of, because my grandmother's named Rita, then I had like a few cousins named Rita. My brother is Luciano, and we had a bunch of Lucianos.
We really messed up not getting involved in the Italian ice game.
And we could have made a killer.
Yeah, or like our own line of grated cheese. It doesn't even matter. You just put an Italian name on something that's Italian, and people will be like, "Hell yeah, it's good."
Yeah, and now somebody on TikTok would use it, like someone who's not Italian, like I discovered,
like the guy from The Sopranos who played Bobby has his own line of sauce. He probably doesn't know how to cook, but who cares? They're gonna buy it.
I'm sure he's not making the sauce. He's like, I feel like
honestly, he probably is.
He's
Each one of these, I put 100% effort into.
All right, Joe. I think we're done here.
Was this even an episode?
I don't know what
this was like a behind the scenes.
I never really knew if this episode started.
My parents did nothing wrong.
I didn't know where this episode was going, and now we're just out of time.
Great.
But in case this is an episode, give your plugs.
Buy a t-shirt. How about that?
All right, well, whatever the fuck that was, I'm Carmelo Bon Jovi, and subscribe. This is a bit too much.